Part 1. The Exclusion. The first human delegation to the Galactic Concord arrived with high hopes. Admiral Kim stood tall as he entered the grand chamber, his navy blue uniform adorned with Earth's insignia, a simple blue sphere embraced by olive branches. The circular hall stretched upward in sweeping arcs of gleaming metal and living crystal, seats arranged in rising tiers filled with representatives of 37 spacefaring civilizations. "We come seeking full membership," Admiral Kim announced, his voice steady despite the weight of humanity's future resting on his shoulders. "Earth has maintained peace among our colonies for 70 years. We believe we're ready to join you as equals." The alien representatives stirred, their bodies so varied that some barely registered as living beings to human eyes. The Trill ambassador, with skin that rippled like water under moonlight, spoke first. "We welcome Earth as a trading partner and cultural exchange. But regarding military participation in Concord adjudications, this requires separate consideration." Kim hadn't expected this response. Adjudications, the Concord system of limited regulated warfare to settle disputes between worlds, were considered the backbone of galactic stability. Being excluded from them meant humanity would remain second-class citizens in galactic politics. "May I ask why?" he inquired politely. The Security Council granted Earth observer status only. For 3 months, Kim and his team watched recordings of past adjudications. They were strange affairs to human eyes, almost ceremonial, with predetermined battle zones, equal forces, and victory conditions negotiated in advance. Wars fought like chess matches, with elegant moves and minimal casualties. On the final day of their observation period, the Council delivered their verdict. Admiral Kim sat alone at the small observer's desk as the Chief Counselor, a tall being, with 4 arms and gleaming copper skin, read the decision. "The petition for human military participation in Concord adjudications is denied by unanimous vote," the Counselor announced. "Our analysis indicates fundamental physiological and psychological incompatibility with civilized warfare." A murmur swept through the chamber. Kim's face remained carefully neutral. "Would the Council explain this incompatibility?" he asked quietly. "Humans possess extreme endurance beyond most Concord species. Your pain tolerance exceeds safe parameters. Your psychological profile shows dangerous adaptability under pressure and willingness to employ what our experts term excessive force multiplication. In simple terms, Admiral, your species does not fight like civilized beings." Kim's assistant, Lieutenant Hay, stiffened beside him. "This is an insult," she whispered. Admiral Kim placed a calming hand on her arm. "Thank you for your candid assessment," he said to the Council. "We accept your decision." Back on their ship, Lieutenant Hay couldn't contain her anger. "They called us savages, basically. Animals. After all we've done to unite our own world." The Admiral poured 2 small glasses of clear liquid from his personal reserve. "They didn't call us savages, Hay. They called us dangerous." He offered her 1 glass, his eyes thoughtful. "Perhaps they're right. So we just accept being sidelined? Observer status only?" Kim looked out the viewport at the gleaming Concord station. "For now, we'll focus on trade, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation. We'll become indispensable in peaceful ways. And if conflict comes to our doorstep, we can't defend ourselves. The treaty allows for self-defense of human systems," Kim replied. "As for anything beyond that, let's hope it never becomes necessary to show the Concord exactly why they were right to fear us." After returning to Earth, Admiral Kim delivered his report to the United Earth government. The politicians raged and threatened to withdraw from the Concord entirely. Kim counseled patience. "We've spent centuries fighting each other," he told the assembled leaders. "Maybe we need to prove, to ourselves as much as to them, that we're more than just efficient killers." Reluctantly, the government agreed. Human representatives continued attending Concord meetings, offering innovations in medicine, agriculture, and sustainable energy. Human merchants established trade routes. Human artists shared music and stories that found appreciation among many alien cultures. But quietly out of sight, humanity prepared. Earth's shipyards built vessels that emphasized function over form, unlike the elegant but impractical Concord designs. Military academies studied the few available records of Concord battles, identifying weaknesses and opportunities. Special forces trained in environments that would kill most alien species. "We respect their rules," Admiral Kim told his successor, Admiral Park, on his retirement day, "but we prepare for the day when rules won't be enough." 50 years passed. Humanity became a valued trading partner in the Concord, though always with the military restriction hanging over them, a constant reminder of their difference. Some humans resented this second-class status, but most simply focused on building Earth's strength and influence through other means. Then came the first reports from the outer systems, an unknown force attacking Concord worlds, ignoring all attempts at communication or negotiation. The elegant adjudication forces of the Concord, so effective against each other, found themselves outmatched by an enemy that didn't follow their rules. Admiral Park sat in the observer's chair at an emergency council meeting, watching the grim reports with a face carved from stone. No one noticed his small smile as the council's perfect military system began to crumble against an enemy that fought to win, not to score points. The humans understood what was coming long before the Concord admitted it. They would be needed, and they would be ready. Part 2. The encroachment. Admiral Park stood at the observation deck of the human diplomatic vessel, watching the Concord Security Council's fleet exercises with a critical eye. 50 years had passed since humanity's exclusion from galactic warfare, but the sting remained. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, their maneuvers precise and beautiful, like a dance rather than preparation for battle. "Impressive, aren't they?" asked his aide, Lieutenant Cho, joining him at the viewport. "Pretty," Park admitted, "but they've never faced a real enemy. Their adjudications are glorified ceremonies." As if to prove his point, 2 Concord Battle Sea cruisers performed an intricate spiraling maneuver that left them completely exposed for nearly 30 seconds, a move that would be suicidal in actual combat, but scored high points in their regulated warfare system. "Our ships wouldn't stand a chance against them in an adjudication," Lieutenant Cho said. "That's because we don't build ships to score points," Park replied. "We build them to win." The first reports came 3 weeks later. Something had emerged from beyond the galactic rim, destroying a remote monitoring station without warning or communication. The Concord dismissed it as a cosmic event or sensor malfunction. When 2 more stations went dark, they sent a small investigative force. None returned. Admiral Park sat silently in his observer's chair at the emergency session of the Security Council. The chamber, usually ordered and ceremonial, buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 37 species argued over the meaning of the lost ships. "The sensor data we recovered shows an organized fleet," said the security chief, a tall being with iridescent scales. "We are dealing with a new species, one that has not responded to any communication attempts. Perhaps they don't understand our signals," suggested the Trill ambassador. "They understand destruction well enough," rumbled a massive representative from a high-gravity world. "They've already taken 3 outposts in the Cygnus sector." Park listened without comment as the council debated sending a formal adjudication force, their standard response to any conflict. He knew it would fail. These newcomers wouldn't play by Concord rules. Over the next 6 months, the pattern became clear. The invaders, now called the Void Hegemony after the few intercepted communications suggested a hive-minded consciousness, systematically conquered outlying systems. The Concord forces, so elegant in their exercises, crumbled before an enemy that ignored the rules of engagement. 17 systems fell in rapid succession. At each council meeting, Admiral Park sat quietly in his observer seat, watching the proud representatives of the Concord come to terms with an uncomfortable truth. Their military doctrine was fundamentally flawed. The breaking point came with the Battle of Epsilon Indi, a star system perilously close to Earth. The Concord sent their largest fleet, commanded by their most decorated admiral. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. When the final transmission came through, the Concord flagship breaking apart under concentrated fire, the council chamber fell silent. Admiral Park finally spoke. "Perhaps it's time to reconsider humanity's exclusion from military affairs." The chief counselor's copper skin had dulled with stress. We cannot change fundamental doctrine because of one aggressive species. 17 lost systems isn't enough, Park asked. How many more before you accept that your approach to warfare isn't working? Our superior numbers will prevail, insisted the security chief. We have begun full mobilization. Numbers won't matter if you keep fighting like this, Park said, rising from his seat. He walked to the central display and pulled up the battle footage from Epsilon Indy. Look here, and here. Your ships maintained perfect formation even while being targeted. You sacrificed tactical advantage for procedural correctness. That is how civilized species conduct warfare, the chief counselor replied stiffly. That is how you lose wars, Park countered. The Void hegemony doesn't care about your rules or your civilization. They're fighting to win. His words hung in the air as the display showed the final moments of the Concorde flagship, its elegant design breaking apart under relentless fire. We're not asking to join your adjudications anymore, Park continued, his voice softer now. We're offering to help you survive. They dismissed his offer. Humanity watched as 3 more systems fell, each defeat more devastating than the last. Human intelligence vessels, operating just beyond Concorde space, gathered data on the Void, hegemony's tactics and capabilities. What they found was troubling. The invaders adapted quickly, learning from each engagement, while the Concorde forces remained rigidly committed to their failing doctrine. On Earth, military preparations accelerated. Ships built in secret over decades were brought online. Soldiers trained in combat styles that would horrify the Concorde practiced day and night. Admiral Park reported everything to the United Earth government, which stood ready to defend human space with or without Concorde approval. They'll come to us eventually, he told the Earth Security Council. When they've lost enough, when they're desperate enough, they'll remember the savages they keep at arm's length. The tipping point came faster than even Park had predicted. A Void hegemony fleet bypassed the crumbling Concorde defenses and struck at Procyon, a major trading hub just 2 jumps from Sol. The devastation was total. 3 billion lives lost in a single day. That evening, as Park prepared his regular report for Earth's government, his communication panel lit up with an incoming transmission from the Concorde capital. The chief counselor's copper face filled the screen. The being's usual composure shattered. Admiral Park, the counselor said, voice trembling slightly. The Security Council requests an immediate meeting with Earth's military leadership. Park allowed himself a small, grim smile. Of course, Chief Counselor. We've been expecting your call. Part 3. The request. The Concorde delegation arrived on Earth with none of their usual ceremony. Their ships, once gleaming examples of artistic engineering, now bore scorch marks and hasty repairs. Admiral Park met them at the orbital station above Earth, noting how the aliens' postures had changed. The Chief Counselor, whose copper skin had always shimmered with confidence, now appeared dull and tense. "Welcome to Earth," Park said simply. "I wish it were under better circumstances." "As do we all," the Chief Counselor replied. The being's forearms were held close to its body, a sign of distress among its kind. "We have much to discuss." The meeting took place in Earth's global security chamber, a stark contrast to the ornate halls of the Concorde. Human military leaders sat on one side of the table, the alien delegation on the other. The wall screens displayed the current state of the conflict, a spreading darkness consuming the galaxy map. 26 systems lost, General Lee began without preamble. The Void hegemony has destroyed 3 major population centers and shows no interest in negotiation. Their advance has accelerated in the past month. The Chief Counselor nodded. "Our forces are not performing as expected." A remarkable understatement, Park thought. The Concorde's military, designed for ceremonial adjudications with predetermined outcomes, had proven completely ineffective against an enemy fighting for total victory. "We've observed your conflicts," the counselor continued. "Your history contains warfare unlike anything in Concorde experience. You fight differently." "We fight to win," General Lee said flatly. The Concorde representatives exchanged uncomfortable glances. Their society had evolved beyond Earth's brutal military history, or so they had always claimed. Now that history was exactly what they needed, the Security Council has authorized me to formally request Earth's military assistance against the Void hegemony, the Chief Counselor announced. We are prepared to lift all restrictions on human forces operating beyond your solar system. A silence fell over the room. For 50 years, humanity had lived with the stigma of exclusion, deemed too violent, too unpredictable for civilized warfare. Now these same aliens were asking for that violence to be unleashed on their behalf. Admiral Park looked around at the human representatives, seeing the same thought reflected in their eyes. Commander Jin, head of Earth Special Forces, gave him a slight nod. We've been monitoring the situation, Park said carefully. We've gathered extensive intelligence on hegemony movements and tactics. The aliens straightened in surprise. Our deep space reconnaissance has been active since the first attacks, Park continued. We saw what was coming. You've been preparing, the Chief Counselor realized. Even though we denied your participation, we've been preparing, Park confirmed, because we understand what's at stake. The Void hegemony doesn't recognize other sentient life as having value. They won't stop until every free world is conquered or destroyed. Commander Jin activated the central display, showing designs for human warships. Smaller, less ornate, but vastly more practical than their Concorde counterparts. Our vessels prioritize function over form, she explained. Multiple redundant systems compartmentalize damage control, and weapons systems designed to target weaknesses we've observed in hegemony ships. The Concorde military attaché, a being with 6 eyes set in a bony ridge, studied the schematics with growing interest. These were designed specifically to counter the hegemony? We've been watching every battle, Jin confirmed. Learning what works and what doesn't. General Lee stepped forward. Before we agree to anything, we need to establish clear parameters. If we commit human forces, we fight our way. No Concorde battle protocols, no predetermined engagement rules. The Chief Counselor's skin darkened, the equivalent of a human paling. What exactly does that mean? It means we'll use tactics you won't like, Admiral Park said bluntly. Asymmetric, warfare, ambushes, psychological operations, whatever it takes to win. That's not how the Concorde conducts, the attaché began. That's exactly why you're losing, Park cut in. The hegemony doesn't care about your conducting. They care about winning, so do we. The human delegation watched as the aliens processed this reality. For centuries, the Concorde had treated warfare as an extension of politics. Controlled, limited, civilized. Humans knew better. War was chaos, pain, and survival. It wasn't meant to be beautiful. We accept your terms, the Chief Counselor finally said. The Concorde grants full military authority to Earth forces against the Void hegemony. The meeting adjourned with the signing of the Earth-Concorde Defense Pact. As the alien delegation prepared to depart, the Chief Counselor pulled Admiral Park aside. There was another reason we excluded humans from Concorde conflicts, the being admitted quietly. Many species fear what humans might become if given free rein in galactic warfare. Your kind adapts too quickly, fights too effectively. Park met the alien's gaze steadily. Those qualities are exactly what you need now. Yes, the Counselor agreed. But I wonder, once unleashed, can you be contained again? Admiral Park didn't answer. Within days, Earth's response mobilized with efficiency that stunned the Concorde observers. Ships that had been waiting in hidden orbital docks moved into deployment positions. Troops trained in harsh environments loaded. On to transports. Commander Jin's Special Forces teams, soldiers who could operate in conditions that would kill most alien species, prepared for insertion behind enemy lines. Admiral Park stood in Earth's main control center, watching as the first human battle group prepared to jump to the front lines. Lieutenant Cho handed him the final deployment orders. The Concorde's providing us with their tactical data, she said. It's not very useful. They don't understand what they're seeing. We do, Park replied, signing the orders, and that's why we'll win. He looked up at the main screen, where hundreds of human ships were forming up for their first engagement. They weren't beautiful like conquered vessels. They were functional, lethal, and built by a species that had spent its history learning how to survive against all odds. Send the jump codes, he ordered. It's time to show the galaxy why they were right to fear us. Part 4. The Revelation. The Concorde observation vessel hung at the edge of the Arcturus system, maintaining a safe distance from the battle unfolding before them. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as human ships engaged the void. Hegemony fleet in ways that defied their understanding of warfare. "They've disappeared," said the Trill observer, his rippling skin reflecting the confusion they all felt. On their tactical display, most of the human fleet had simply vanished. Unlike Concorde vessels, which broadcasted their positions as a matter of honor, the human ships ran dark. No signals, minimal heat signatures, using the system's asteroid belt and radiation fields for cover. "Not disappeared," corrected the human liaison officer assigned to them, "just not advertising where they are." The liaison, Major Han, stood calmly as the aliens around him struggled to follow the battle. To them, combat had always been visible, trackable, conducted according to established patterns. What the humans were doing seemed like cheating. Suddenly, human ships appeared behind the hegemony forces, emerging from hiding places where they'd been waiting for hours. They struck hard at the enemy's supply vessels and communication nodes, before melting back into the darkness of space. "This is not a proper formation," protested the six-eyed military attaché. "There is no central command structure visible. Each ship captain has mission objectives, not movement orders." "Major," Han explained. "They adapt to changing conditions." The aliens exchanged troubled glances. In Concorde doctrine, such independence would lead to chaos. Yet the humans were functioning with deadly efficiency. Across the front lines, similar scenes played out. Commander, Jin's Special Forces teams infiltrated a hegemony-controlled space station, moving through maintenance ducts that other species found too confined for comfort. They fought in darkness and low oxygen that would incapacitate most Concorde soldiers. When the station's systems suddenly failed and hegemony communications went silent, the Concorde ships waiting nearby realized that just 40 human operators had neutralized a facility that would have required a full battle group to take by conventional means. On a mineral-rich moon that the hegemony had been using as a staging area, Colonel Young's team demonstrated another aspect of human warfare that horrified Concorde observers: endurance beyond rational limits. Cut off from their extraction point when a hegemony patrol discovered their presence, Young's soldiers dug into the moon's toxic landscape. For 6 days they fought without sleep, surviving on emergency rations and recycled water, in an atmosphere that required them to wear masks at all times. "They should have surrendered when surrounded," a Concorde commander commented when reviewing the battle records. "Any civilized force would have recognized the hopelessness of their position. Instead, Young's team held their ground until reinforcements arrived, losing 11 soldiers but killing over 300 hegemony fighters." The most shocking revelation for the Concorde came during the battle for the Proxima Transit Hub. Captain E. Ryu's destroyer was critically damaged, its engines failing as it drifted toward a hegemony battleship. Instead of abandoning ship, Ryu ordered full power to the remaining thrusters. The destroyer accelerated directly into the enemy vessel, destroying both ships, but creating a gap in the hegemony defenses that allowed the rest of the human fleet to break through. "They sacrificed themselves deliberately," the chief counselor whispered as they watched the recording. "Their captain chose to die." "He chose to win," Admiral Park corrected. "There's a difference." The Concorde military leadership convened an emergency session to assess the human methods. Their reports reflected growing alarm. Human forces operate without sufficient rest cycles, maintaining combat effectiveness for periods that would cause psychological breakdown in most species. They employed deception as a primary tactic, refusing standard engagement protocols in favor of ambush and misdirection. They show willingness to accept casualties at rates our psychologists consider pathological, yet morale remains high. Most concerning, they adapt their tactics constantly, showing no adherence to established doctrine. After 3 months of human involvement, the Void hegemony's advance had not only stopped but reversed. Systems that had fallen to the invaders were being reclaimed one by one. Yet the Concorde representatives found themselves increasingly disturbed by their saviors. At a high-level briefing, Admiral Park presented footage of human Marines fighting in the corridors of a recaptured Concorde colony. The soldiers moved with practiced precision, communicating in shorthand signals, eliminating hegemony fighters with brutal efficiency. "Your people fight like they were born for it," the Trill ambassador commented uneasily. "In a way we were," Park replied. "Earth's history is largely a history of warfare. We've had to become good at it to survive." "The hegemony fights to dominate," added the military attaché. "You fight to—" "What?" "There's a quality to human combat we cannot define." "We fight to end fights," Commander Jin said from her position at the back of the room. "When humans go to war, our goal isn't to win battles. It's to ensure we never have to fight that enemy again." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Concord approached warfare as a regulated extension of politics. The hegemony fought for conquest, but humans fought for conclusion, total and final. After the briefing, the chief counselor approached Admiral Park privately. "We're starting to understand why you were banned from our adjudications," the alien said quietly. "Your species doesn't fight wars, you exterminate threats. If you had participated in our ceremonial conflicts, you would have seen what you're seeing now," Park finished. "And it would have terrified you." "It terrifies us now," the counselor admitted, "but it terrifies the hegemony more." As the campaign progressed, the Void hegemony began to change its tactics. They avoided direct confrontation with human forces, abandoned positions at the first sign of human ships, and prioritized escape over victory. For a hive mind that had never shown fear, this behavioral shift was remarkable. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Park reviewed the latest battle reports with his staff. The screens showed human vessels pursuing hegemony ships into a dense nebula. "They're running from us now," Lieutenant Cho observed. "They've learned to fear humans." "Good," Park said. "Fear is a language they understand, and now they know why the Concord was right to keep us leashed." He turned to the window, looking out at the stars. "The galaxy is learning exactly what humanity is capable of when pushed too far." On the other side of the room, Commander Jin was studying tactical projections for the next phase of the campaign. "The Concord wants to know our long-term strategy," she said. "I think what they really want to know is when we'll stop." Admiral Park's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were hard as steel. "We'll stop," he said quietly, "when there's nothing left to fight." Part 5. The Understanding. The final battle for the hegemony core system began at dawn, Earth Standard Time. Admiral Park insisted on using Earth's clock for all operations, a small reminder to the Concord of who was leading this fight. From his command ship, he watched as Lieutenant Kang's strike force moved into position around the massive space station that served as the hegemony's central hub. "All teams in position," Lieutenant Kang reported, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Awaiting your order." Park nodded. "Begin the operation." What followed was a display of military precision that left the Concord observers speechless. Human ships executed a series of maneuvers that seemed chaotic at first glance, but formed a perfect net around the hegemony forces. Special ops teams deployed from stealth shuttles, breaching the station at multiple points simultaneously. Thrath, the Trill ambassador, watching from the observation deck of Park's command ship, shook his head in wonder. "Your people move like they share a single mind, yet each acts independently. How is this possible?" "Training," Park replied simply, "and trust. Each soldier knows their job and trusts their comrades to do theirs." On the main view screen, they watched as Lieutenant Kang led her team through the central corridor of the station. The hegemony defenders fought desperately, but the humans advanced with relentless determination. When a section of ceiling collapsed, trapping 2 soldiers, Kang didn't hesitate. She ordered the team to continue while she stayed behind to free them. "She's risking the mission for 2 individuals," the ambassador noted with surprise. "No," Park corrected. "She's completing the mission while refusing to abandon her people. There's a difference." The fighting lasted 18 hours. Human forces suffered heavy casualties but never faltered. When the hegemony leadership finally surrendered, it wasn't to the Concord admirals waiting in their ornate ships. It was to Lieutenant Kang, her armor scarred and her face streaked with blood, standing in their command center. The aftermath revealed something the Concord hadn't expected. In recaptured systems, They found hegemony prison camps where civilians from conquered worlds had been held. Human medical teams were already there, treating the injured regardless of species. In a field hospital on one of the liberated moons, Commander Jin supervised the distribution of supplies. A Concord medical officer approached her, confusion evident. In his multifaceted eyes, "Your soldiers are giving their rations to hegemony children," he said, "the same enemy they were killing hours ago." Jin looked over at a human medic sharing his water with a small hegemony offspring whose carapace was still soft with youth. "They're not enemies anymore," she explained. "They're survivors. The fighting is over." "But these children will grow to be warriors," the medical officer insisted. "Tactical analysis would suggest eliminating future threats." Jin's expression hardened. "That's not how we fight. We destroy threats, not victims. The difference matters to us." Reports like this filtered back to the Concord leadership, creating confusion. The humans fought with a brutality that horrified them, yet showed compassion that defied their understanding of warfare. It was as if humanity operated on a moral framework entirely different from either the ceremonial combat of the Concord or the extermination protocols of the hegemony. 1 month after the surrender, Admiral Park stood before the full Concord Security Council. The chamber was subdued, the representatives still processing the reality of what they had witnessed. "The void hegemony has been contained," Park reported. "Their leadership structure has been dismantled, their weapons capabilities neutralized. They no longer pose a threat to Concord space." "And what of their civilians?" asked the chief counselor. "Their colony worlds?" "Under protection until your diplomats can establish a new governance framework," Park replied. "We've left humanitarian teams to assist with the transition." A murmur ran through the chamber. The concept of caring for conquered populations was foreign to most Concord species, whose adjudications never resulted in actual occupation. "You could have eliminated them entirely," the chief counselor observed. "After what they did to Concord, worlds many would have understood such finality." "That's not victory," Park said simply. "That's extermination. Humans learned the difference the hard way through centuries of our own wars." He stepped closer to the council's central platform, his voice taking on a deeper intensity. "You banned us because you feared what we might do. You were right to fear us." His gaze swept across the alien representatives. "But you called us when you needed what only we could do." The chamber fell silent. For 50 years, these species had looked down on humans as primitives, too violent and unpredictable for civilized warfare. Now they understood that humanity's approach to conflict wasn't simply brutal. It was complex, containing both ferocity and mercy in measures they hadn't imagined possible. 3 days later, the Concord amended its charter. Humans would remain banned from ceremonial adjudications. This provision was actually strengthened. But a new section was added, designating Earth as the Concord's defender of last resort against existential threats. On the Concord capital, a world, a new monument was unveiled. A simple stone pillar with words in multiple languages. In Earth Standard it read, "Pray that you never need to call upon Earth again." Admiral Park attended the ceremony alongside Lieutenant Kang, now promoted to captain for her role in the final battle. As the crowds dispersed, the chief counselor approached them. "Your ships are withdrawing from Concord space," the alien noted. "Returning to your solar system." "That was our agreement," Park confirmed. "We came to end a threat, not to occupy." "Many species fear you more now than before," the counselor said. "They've seen what humans are capable of." Kang smiled slightly. "Good. Fear is an excellent peacekeeper." "Is that what you think you've given us?" "Peace." "We've given you time," Park corrected. "What you do with it is your choice." In the years that followed, diplomatic conflicts within the Concord changed subtly. When tensions rose between species, when adjudication seemed inevitable, someone would inevitably mention Earth. The mere suggestion that a conflict might escalate to require human intervention was often enough to bring parties back to the negotiation table. On the 50th anniversary of the Hegemony War, Admiral Park, long since retired, received a visitor at his home on Earth. The chief counselor, skin now dulled with age, had come to deliver a message. "The Concord has experienced the longest period of peace in our recorded history," the alien said. No adjudications have been necessary for over a decade. Park nodded, pouring tea for his visitor. Fear is a powerful motivator. Not fear alone, the counselor replied thoughtfully. Understanding. We feared humans before, but we didn't understand you, now we do. The alien's 4 hands cradled the teacup carefully. You fight not because you love violence, but because you hate it enough to end it completely. Park smiled. It took a galaxy-wide war for you to learn what any human child knows. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is fight so fiercely that no one dares start another fight. As the chief counselor departed, he paused at the door. The amendment to our charter excluding humans from adjudications, it was never really about protecting the Concord from humans, was it? No, Park admitted. It was about protecting humans from becoming what the Concord wanted us to be, soldiers who fight for show rather than resolution. In the night sky above, stars twinkled peacefully. Somewhere among them, the monument on the Concord world still stood, its warning clear. The galaxy had seen what humanity could do when provoked, and it had understood at last why humans had been banned from galactic wars, not because they were too primitive to participate, but because they were too effective to unleash.